Welcome to Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation. Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this 25th day of September. Got a great show with you for tonight. Going to talk some college football a little bit later, and also returning guest. I haven't had him here in a while, Keith Engle. Man, this guy knows college football. Make sure do not miss that. Keith Engle from TGI Sports. He is the man. Going to ask him about that Georgia-Alabama game, what he thinks, who's overrated, who's underrated, and whatnot. I hope I'll get to everything. It's good catching up with Keith. He's a lot of fun to talk to. Plus, Josh Allen letting the cat out the bag about Stefon Diggs, what I've been saying the whole time about player stats and whatnot, and look at how well he's playing. That's his words, not mine. Also, interesting story out of UNLV. I mean, UNLV, best start since 1984, and their quarterback, two big wins, and their quarterback walks away because of an NIL dispute. Talk about that story more. Let's take our first and only break here, have a few announcements, and I'll be back here shortly. We'll hit the ground running here on the Real Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to Sports, that is Sports with an S, another S, Scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program.
I'm Mac, CEO of National Streaming Sports and host of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. You're watching the sharp-dressed man and the big story breaker, Robert Butler, on Sports Scope, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern on National Streaming Sports. To get the National Streaming Sports channel on your Roku TV, channel search National Streaming Sports. There's the channel search in Roku. There's our logo right on the right, NESSP. Tap on the logo and it will add to your TV, the channel to your TV. On your laptop, tablet, and mobile phone, download the free Roku app and channel search just like above. If you don't have Roku TV, you have to order a Roku device from the Roku store, hook it up to your smart TV, and bang, you have Roku TV. Again, channel search, National Streaming Sports, click on our NESSP logo, and add the channel. National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
All righty then. Glad you survived all our commercials here. Okay, so what I've been saying for a while is it's not just the fact that, that Stefon Diggs, I think he's a cancer. I thought he was a cancer at Minnesota. I thought he was a cancer at Buffalo, and I think he'll eventually be a cancer with the Houston Texans. It's the fact that the wide receiver market, the pay for wide receivers is going out of this world. Read a few weeks ago that the Bengals, actually, the cheap Bengals, who I pounded yesterday, actually offered a similar number, very much almost verbatimly the same as Justin Jefferson's contract in Minnesota, and he turned it down. He said he wanted $1 more per se, Jamar Chase, than Justin Jefferson in Minnesota. It's a very big ego-driven position and whatnot. But anyways, so just let's go back to what was said Tuesday after the game. After the game, I want to say this is a press conference yesterday. Didn't get a chance to talk about it, but obviously I have Buffalo as a top team in my Power 5 as of today. That could change, of course, once things as the season goes along. But here's Josh Allen. It's fun and wonderful thing. It's a fun and wonderful thing when you have a bunch of guys that don't care about the stats. And, you know, you could, of course, then he later walked that back and said that he didn't mean for that to be a shot at any former players, AK, you know. Here it is. This was today, Orchard Park, New York, from Alana Getzberg. She's the Buffalo Bills reporter for ESPN. Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen clarified Wednesday that the recent positive comments towards his current teammates were not digs or any way directed at former teammates. Some of what Allen said post-game news conference following the 47-10 win over Jacksonville was perceived as a shot at Stephon Diggs. Listen, it was a shot at Stephon Diggs. He's just trying not to amp things up. They play later on this season. I want to say they play here in just a few months here. That's going to be a well talked about game. They play in 2 weeks, actually. 2 weeks, yeah. Buffalo's got to play at Baltimore, and then they got to play at Houston on October the 6th. So that's going to be an interesting game there. I can't wait to see that come about. Okay, but that being said, Josh Allen, back to my notes here. I mentioned a little bit of this yesterday, folks. Josh Allen, best quarterback rating. He's, by the way, 75% completion percentage without Stephon Diggs there. This is with a rookie wide receiver that's supposed to be the number one guy, Keon Coleman. This is with Khalif Shakur, who's probably perceived as a 2, possibly a 3. He's a second-year guy at wide receiver. And, of course, you've got Dalton Kincaid there at tight end. So he's spreading the rock around. 4 different players scored a touchdown. Of course, you know, you got the running back there and James Cook. And also he has the highest completion, the highest QBR, and he's second in completion percentage, highest QBR and actual quarterback rating in the NFL. Technically, I guess he would be considered the MVP favorite with those type of numbers. With the 3-0 record, of course, it's 3 games into the season. We're technically in the first quarter. I guess what I'm saying is this has started to become a trend. If you know that you have a franchise quarterback, and there is no doubt in your mind, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, regardless of what team he's on, and, of course, Patrick Mahomes there, you do not have to pay this high dollar amount for a wide receiver, $34, $35 million here. Let's go back, not to sound like a broken record, but again, Tyreek Hill went to Miami from Kansas City. You got two Super Bowl wins here, and now you're seeing that he's gotten another contract from Miami, along with Jalen Waddle, and they're in trouble right now down in Miami. Season's already in trouble. I mentioned before, Devontae Adams leaving Green Bay for the Vegas. Look at what Green Bay did. I had Rich Ferris on here. It was at the Green Bay game. last Sunday. Look at the receivers that they've bought in. They look like they've hit on all their players there, and they seem to be fine. They're one of the most high-octane offenses in the NFL, folks. And not to mention the fact that going back about 15 years or so, 10 years, more like 10 maybe, Calvin Johnson. When Calvin Johnson retired, Matt Stafford, folks, Matt Stafford's numbers got better also. So this is turning into a trend. You could say, well, what about the opposite there? Well, yes, there is a situation where Ryan Tannehill numbers fell off with A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's numbers with Jalen Hurts' numbers with A.J. Brown. But also look at the fact that was a close game last week, okay, against the Saints. What if that's a tight game and A.J. Brown's only got 4 or 5 targets? I got this image of him on the sideline here asking for the ball. There is a chance last week, if he were healthy, that he forces that ball to A.J. Brown and it comes up incomplete in a very tight game, and there's a chance the Saints could have won that game. Trust me, I know I've seen A.J. Brown have some Stephon Diggs moments complaining about the ball in the Giants game, and it's a total blowout. Was it last year or the year before? I think it was the year they went to the Super Bowl. I mean, what are you thinking, man? So anyways, you look at that and you think, okay, when you've got these kind of players here, this is a new loophole, okay? This is a new thing that if these general managers are watching and paying attention here, if you really believe in this quarterback and you got that quarterback going into the second contract, that's the position to move off of. Number one, the market is busted wide open. I just mentioned $34 million, 33 guys like CeeDee Lamb. And, of course, they're 1 and 2. Go figure. CeeDee Lamb. And, of course, who's the other one there? Of course, Justin Jefferson. Of course, they're playing really well right now. But, you know, you had Brandon Ayuk as well. And you look at that issue right there. But it's turning into a thing. You let those players go. You fill in defense and offensive line, and you're going to be in better shape according to this. That's what the data's saying. So, if definition of insanity, Pickles is doing the same thing over and expecting a different results. Every Super Bowl winner builds around their star quarterback as far as the offensive line and pressure. Look at the best receiving core that Tom Brady had with Wes Welker and Randy Moss. They did not win the Super Bowl that year. He wins with guys like Julian Edelman, a little bit better up front defensively, and a better line per se, and tight ends, guys like Gronkowski. So you could see where because the big air quote star receiver there, it's really a myth. It's more, and that's why I say the Cincinnati owner. It's more about selling jerseys with these star receivers. Even in this passing league, it's more about selling jerseys in fantasy football than it comes down to actually winning Super Bowls, if you think about it. The Kansas City Chiefs, look at their receiving core. Rashid Rice, was he like a second-year guy, rookie wide receiver, and a tight end on the back end of his career? You look at those Brady teams, it's really an overrated, and it has been for the last few years, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Let somebody else do that. I ain't saying you don't have to have a good receiver. You can find one in the draft, or you can sign another number 2 receiver. A number 2 receiver, a number 3 veteran wide receiver, and draft the guy and build off him, but that kind of depend on your other guys and spread the ball around. That's a philosophy, I think, that seems to be more of a winning philosophy rather than trying to force the ball to a guy that's always complaining about the ball in a tight game when somebody else may be open, when he's in double and triple teams. That's all I'm saying. But that's just another example, and I'm glad Allen finally let the cat out of the bag. What I've been saying the whole time, Diggs is holding him back. Here's the other part of this equation. What about Stephon Diggs? Or not Stephon Diggs. What about C.J. Stroud? What about this guy's a second-year player. He's a young quarterback. That's something, if I'm the head coach there, I'm keeping an eye on him to make sure he's not trying to bully, intimidate the young C.J. Stroud to throw him the ball when you've got a Dalton Schultz out there. You've got a Nico Collins, Tank Dell, although I think Tank Dell's banged up again. That's another part of this equation. If I'm the Texans and I'm starting to see that, I'd move that guy. I really would. I would move him sometime in the middle of before the trade deadline if I start to sense that. Pickle says from Montana to Aikman, Manning, Brady, and now Mahomes. That's true. You gotta have the protection around the quarterback, and you need a running game, some type of running game or the equivalent of it, and you need some type of pass rush on your defensive side. You can't take away from that pass rush and add more receivers. It just does not work. Yeah. Pickle says C.J. Stroud be watched close to D'Amico Ryans. Yeah, Ryans seems like a guy that don't take an ounce of crap off anybody. He's former linebacker there. It's always good when you got a guy that used to play linebacker in the league. Okay, I know I've got the great Keith Engel coming on here shortly. I wanted to get to this other story. Interesting story, folks, out of UNLV. UNLV, the football team, Pickles, best start since 1984. UNLV football. Yes, that's correct. 40 years, their best start. They beat Kansas, who's been hovering around the top 25. Really good coach down there in Kansas. Beat them on a Friday night at Kansas last week. A couple weeks ago, they beat Houston, which has had a good football program over the past few years. They beat other big-name programs before. So that two really big wins. They were 3-0 to start the season. Now this Matthew Sluka, the quarterback from this team, he is a transfer from Holy Cross. He was a graduate transfer from Holy Cross. Wasn't filling up the stat bucket per se. He never had over 200 yards passing. Very good dual threat guy though. Holding it down. I mean, the team's undefeated. And he claims that he was promised by the offensive coordinator there. The head coach says, I'm not aware of this. He was promised by the offensive coordinator of $100,000 NIL deal verbally, okay, and never got it and wanted to claim it, wanted to collect on it, and he's only gotten, according to this collective here, a $12,000, $3,000 a month or something like that, living allowance or whatever you want to call it. And this guy's dad disputes it also and says that he was offered the $100,000. The school's not going to pay it. The school is saying, let's see what I get. What did the school say? I've got so much screenshotted here. It's a pretty interesting story. Part of me actually believes this player. This guy may have BS the player. This is from UNLV, from Pete Thamel. I really respect what this guy reports out here. Football, first from UNLV. Football player Matthew Sluka, representative, made financial demands, is what they're saying, upon the university and its NIL collective in order to continue playing. UNLV Athletics interpreted these demands as a violation of NCAA pay-to-play rules, as well as Nevada state law. UNLV does not engage in such activity, nor does it respond or reply to threats. UNLV has honored all previous agreed-upon scholarship for Matthew Sluka. UNLV has conducted its due diligence and will continue to operate its program with the framework of the NCAA rules, regulations. That's such nonsense. Let's see. Pete Thamel and ESPN's Ritterbird on the saga UNLV starting quarterback leaving over unfulfilled NIL promises. So I tell you what, it's it's a messy situation. I'm surprised. Yeah, so you're supposed to be from Holy Cross, holier than thou, but now you want the money. That's interesting. You know, I tell you what, it's he said, they said, you know, and there's a much more detailed story here that led up to this. I mean, you know, you've got Barstool calling the guy a quitter and whatnot. Here's my thing about it. Here's my deal about this. This guy is a grad transfer. You know, I looked up his, you know, he's eligible for the NFL draft. I looked up one site called Draft Buzz, and they got him rated as the 32nd rated quarterback in the 2025 draft. So I don't think there's going to be 32 quarterbacks. I mean, how many quarterbacks will get drafted? 7, 8? I mean, you know, yes, his profile has been risen by the success that UNLV has had. It's only 3 games into the season. He claims, and his father claims, that the SEC and the Big Ten, other schools are offering 3 and 4 times the amount. Okay, so if that is true, why didn't you take it 4 to 5 times the amount? What his dad claims. Just wondering, why didn't he take those opportunities? My guess is they probably said, well, you got to go in here and compete. So my thing is, if this did ever happen in an SEC school, like an Auburn, for example, like I'm not even talking about the big dogs, Georgia and Alabama, an Ole Miss, an Auburn, one of those type of schools, an LSU. And say, for example, and they end up beating like an Alabama and a Georgia, or an Alabama and Tennessee, for example, in the first 2 of the first 3 games. I think that this guy will get paid. I do think that he would end up getting paid somehow. But the fact that this guy told him that, I think that there is some unethicalness on both sides, because, okay, why don't you put this in writing? You didn't put this in writing because technically it's against, even though the NCAA, I was just talking about this last week, we're trying to get it. It's trying to be passed that from the NCAA for pay to play directly. Okay. And Tennessee is actually raising money for the fans or whatever to do so. So I think that's going to be a moot point. It's going to be direct pay to play. This NIL stuff is hit and miss. Because you're getting parties that are not affiliated directly with the schools, directly with that air quote NIL collective, and what I'm getting out of this. And maybe they were confused or whatnot. But my thing is, the guy he was right at the deadline here. If you play less than 4 games, you can redshirt, and then he can go to another school next year. So we're talking a guy that's going to be, he's going to be 20, 23, 24 years old, like a lot of these players have already, and transferring to one of the bigger schools, and he's gonna capitalize on that money, supposedly, and then maybe he'll play semi-pro, USFL, XFL, who have combined in 2026, whatnot, 2027 year. That's what I'm thinking. Not unless he takes off and he gets his stock up and go to the NFL. So I can kind of understand what the player's going through. You know, I don't know if he's strong arm. I doubt if he's strong arm. If his dad's backing up, maybe his dad's a pathological liar. You know, but there's no actual. It's just kind of weird that the offensive coordinator doesn't come out flat out verbally and deny the fact that he said that. That's what bothers me. So it feels shady a little bit on both sides, but this is what we were all kind of concerned about coming into the NIL stuff. I knew that we're still in that stage that I talked about from the very beginning, folks. We're still in that stage where we're in the trying to get this thing squared away and fitted into a proper frame where you have some kind of set of guardrails and guidelines. We're still in the old crap stage, the Wild West stage. It's getting better. It's getting better, but it's not quite molded into what it should be, where you got direct, clean, pay for play, whatever type of situation. So it's an interesting story. I'm going to ask Keith Engel, what does he think about it? Pickle says it's basically a minor league system for the NFL. Texas boosters have been paying players since the 60s. Yeah, you have the Eric Dickerson thing. Not TCU. I think it was SMU, right, Pickles? SMU out of Dallas area, where they had the stuff with Eric Dickerson and Greg James, I want to say. The very good documentary. I think it's called The Pony Express, 30 for 30 on ESPN. That's really good stuff. Of course, they got the death penalty. But now it's much more loose there. I mean, we're in a totally different world now when it comes to this stuff. Pretty crazy. I'm not sure what to think. I feel like that guy may have BS this student, but that's just my opinion. I'm leaning on the edge for the player in this particular situation. Pickle says it was the Pony Express. Yeah, it was the Pony Express. So other thoughts on the college game? My apologies for saying that Michigan wasn't even qualified, wasn't even worth talking about against USC. Wink Martindale, who the Wolverines, they did hire him. Of course, you got Sharon Moore. Kudos to him. I thought he kind of inherited the job. You know, they got a little dirt. They've still got those penalties they're fighting with the NCAA about two-year postseason ban because of the Jim Harbaugh stuff or whatever. I didn't even think that game was worth talking about, but they got all over. What's this guy's name? Miller Moss here. 4 sacks, 1 pick six, and that was a good game. That was a really good game. I got back from doing my Uber stuff in the morning time, and it's the middle of the afternoon, and that USC Michigan was a good game. Did not expect Michigan. I know they got the new quarterback, Alex Orji or whatever. That's his last name. Go figure. This guy's a running quarterback. Didn't have that many passing yards, but he managed the team. And man, Michigan, USC looked so good against LSU back in week 1. My only concern about them was depth on defense. And man, did it show up. 200, Pickles, check us out. Michigan ran on USC for 290 yards rushing. That is not me just coming up with that. That is not, I did not misspeak. That's what the box score says. 290-yard rushing, and they get the win. I feel like Miller Moss finally caught up to the speed of Michigan's pass rush, but they just ran out of time. And of course, Michigan gets the 3-point win there at home. Big win for them though, and knocks down a notch there. It was probably one of the best games. Probably one of the best games of the weekend, last weekend. And of course, University of Tennessee, great game there for the Vols. Defense, as Kevin Carroll, who's on my program, did play well. Kirk Herbstreit, I think it was Reese Davis, they called the game for ABC or whatever, ESPN, they're both the same group there. Really, we're complimentary on Tennessee's depth on the defensive line, 8-9 deep. So that you're saying second team, third. Some guys, third, you're going three strings back there for the defensive line. And man, I'll tell you, when I look back at the box score, 3 sacks. Check this out: 11 tackles for a loss. Tennessee on Oklahoma had 11 tackles behind the line of scrimmage on 11 tackles behind the line of scrimmage against Oklahoma. Now, as far as, and by the way, that was their first road win, Pickles, over a top 15 opponent. And yes, this is not, I had to double check and make sure I heard that right. In 18 years, road win. First road. This was why I was a little concerned about that game. It's Tennessee's first road win over a top 15 opponent in 18 years. It was 2006 over, and I remember that was a very cocky arrogant Georgia team that they beat. So it was a very good win there for Tennessee. They're back up at 5th in the poll, and I'm so glad they passed up Ole Miss because I love the rubbing in Lane Kiffin's face. And here is Keith Angle there. Keith Angle behind the backstage. I wanted to ask Keith about Will Levis here. Hey, Keith, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Robert, how are you? Listen, I wanted to let you know you're out of beer in your green room, and you might want to refill that cooler.
For what?
I had the last one, so.
Oh man, well, yeah, because Tennessee going ahead of Lane Kiffin. Kiffin is in this secret competition with Josh Heupel. If Tennessee scores 70, Ole Miss has got to turn 72.
Listen, I'm a big Lane Kiffin fan. Obviously, you're not. I know he's a little.
I like him.
He's an acquired taste for a lot of people.
That's a great observation.
Yeah, he's the king of the transfer portal. But I got to tell you, Tennessee. I've seen Georgia play. Georgia looks great. Then they play bad against Kentucky. Tennessee hasn't had a stinker yet. You said they won their first game against the top 15 opponent on the road.
18 years.
Forever. And they look great doing it. That game wasn't as close as the score, I can tell you. They beat Oklahoma badly, move up to 5th in the country. The SEC's just loaded. I mean, what's there, 6 teams in the top 10?
Yeah.
Top 11? 16
yeah.
Top 11. It's just
so
a conference.
They're pretty impressive, and they luckily for them, they do have this week off, and they got to play at Arkansas in 2 weeks because I think it would be rough to go on the road 2 weeks in a row and have that level of intensity on defense that they had Saturday night. Hey, what do you think about you like Will Levis? I'm a little bit about right now, 7 turnovers the first 3 games.
Yeah.
Being compared to guys like who was the Jets quarterback that they shipped off to Zach what's his face?
Zach Wilson. Yeah.
Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence in his rookie year. What do you do with Will Levis? You thought he was great in college. He had some moments in college, but also seemed look terrible in college too.
He had some moments last year as a rookie.
He did against Atlanta.
Good and bad. Just like this year, his coach pretty much called him out after this last game, and he's not in a good place right now. And I'm not sure who's the backup. I'm not sure who the
Mason Rudolph from Pittsburgh.
Right. I mean, are you going to go to the playoffs with Mason Rudolph? I don't think so.
He might not lose it for you like Levis has, though,
Maybe you got to simplify the playbook a little bit so he can't make mistakes. I haven't watched that team close enough to know, but when you got a young quarterback, you got to put him in a position to succeed, and don't ask him to do too much and do things he can't do.
Yeah.
And you've got to get him to play within his own abilities, if you will, and not try to force things. And that's what I saw from Levis last year and early this year is he tries to make plays that just aren't there.
Yeah.
And, he's not, I'm sorry, he's not Patrick Mahomes, so you're not going to make those plays, at least not yet. I still have some hope for him, but.
Okay. That's what my guest yesterday said, Rich, maybe hold on to him and maybe after maybe 5 games. I don't know.
Maybe you got to sit him down and let him watch a couple of games, and sometimes that gets guys back, in focus. And you got to be careful because you put guys out there. That's what with the Patriots. I don't want to see Drake May play behind this horrible offensive line because you won't be in a position to succeed, and you're going to destroy his confidence.
That's a good point.
Look what's happened to Bryce Young in Carolina.
Yes.
Now, I don't know whether he's a really good quarterback or not, but we're never going to know probably because they just put him out there and let his confidence and his health get destroyed basically on a bad team.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm starting to lean on letting a player, Brady, he did sit a year. Mahomes did sit a year. I know we're in an impatient lead, but I'm really leaning on letting a guy sit a year as much as I want to get him out there myself, Yeah.
Unless the situation's perfect. I mean, the situation was good for C.J. Stroud last year, and he succeeded. But
yes,
not every quarterback lands in that type of situation, right? And a lot of guys fail early in their career, and it doesn't mean their career is over. I mean, some guys have had awful rookie seasons and come back to be really good quarterbacks. So
Yeah.
but if you get your confidence beat down too far,
It's hard to come back sometimes unless you're mentally just really, really tough.
Yeah.
Man, I got to ask you about this UNL. That's a wild story, ain't it? As good as they're playing.
Yeah, that's the sad part about this. UNLV is one of the most improved teams in the country. Had a legitimate shot to be the team from the Group of 5 conferences. They get a playoff bid.
Wow.
They're probably one of 5 teams that are front runners for that one slot that those leagues will get.
Yeah.
And the kid was promised $100,000. He's gotten $3,000, and
yeah.
I have a problem on both sides of this, right? If you should live up, if you promise a kid something, then live up to it. I'm not crazy about all this, the money flying around, but it's that's the landscape that we play on today. And if you offer them, if you offer them money, then pay them. But at the same time, if I'm the kid, you're leaving behind you're letting your teammates down. You led them to a 3.
I'm torn too, man. I'm torn about that part.
Yeah, I think there's no winners here. I think both sides are to blame here. I think there might be more to this story that we haven't seen yet. And the NCAA is at fault as well for letting these, kids, he can just take himself out. They'll give him a redshirt year and he can go play again somewhere next year.
Yeah, he hasn't played that 4th game yet.
Yeah, so the rules are just too lenient as far as letting kids, number one, redshirt and skip years and then transfer pretty much every year if you want and go find, a better deal somewhere. And look I've tried to put that stuff aside and concentrate on the field. And I was all excited about Georgia, Alabama and some other big games this week. A big game for Notre Dame with Louisville coming to South Bend.
What do you think about that game, Brian? Who's it? Jeff Brom. Of course, that game's going to be on Peacock. I don't even have Peacock. It's not going to be on the regular NBC.
I've got it only because when we bought our new townhome, the people left their we negotiated for them to leave all the TVs they had on the walls, so I didn't have holes in the walls. And it's a 1-year-old house; they're all brand new TVs, and they left their logins for all these things. So I've been watching Peacock with their account. So I've seen the games that have been on Peacock, and that's what's going to happen. That's the world you live in today, right? All these big games for NBC. I know, it's so
annoying.
For Notre Dame, rather, are going to be on Peacock. And as far as the game itself, Louisville's underrated. Jeff Brom's a really good football coach.
Yes.
The ACC championship game last year. Notre Dame has gotten some style points after, falling on the against NIU. And
they lost them that NIU game,
Yeah, that was a bad loss for them. I thought Notre Dame would go undefeated, quite frankly, and I still think they'll run the rest of the table, but they need style points as well now, and they've got some the last couple of weeks. This is a big game. They can't falter here. They got to beat this team, and I think convincingly, because Notre Dame's going to have a tough time, even with one loss, getting into the playoff, because they'll find themselves up against whoever. It's going to come down. Probably that last seed is going to come down to, in my mind, whoever finishes second in the Big 12, the ACC, and probably a 5th team from the SEC.
Okay. Yeah.
Somebody's going to get left without a chair when the music stops there. And it could be Notre Dame.
How bad did that Michigan loss hurt USC?
It hurts them a little bit. They didn't play badly. They had the game at hand and let it get away at the end.
Took a while to catch up to that pass rush, didn't it?
It did for sure. Michigan's offense is not that good, but they're still playing in the big house. Michigan's still Michigan, and that's a tough place to go play. I don't think this loss hurts them a lot. I think they still have a shot at finishing second in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I don't think they're that good. I think I think that they could still fall as far as 500 for the year.
USC or Michigan?
USC. They're scheduled.
Wow. Even after beating LSU?
Yeah. I early in the year, I thought they'd be 5-7. Then I said 6-6.
Yeah.
Once they beat LSU, and I think they could still be 6-6, maybe 7-5 at best.
Wow.
There's people that think they're going to get the number 2 in the in the Big Ten, and that would give them a shot at the playoff. But
Yeah.
to me, the Big Ten, listen, the Big Ten might only get one team unless Oregon gets it together and there's a really strong second to Ohio State or beats them.
Yeah.
In the Big Ten championship game.
So you think Oregon, are you in that bus too, where they were a little bit overrated to start the season?
A little bit. Dan Lanning's a great coach, but Dylan Gabriel has taken some time to, I think, adjust to that offense. Everybody thought he was going to step in and do what Bo Nix did up there. And
I did. Yes.
Yes. Sometimes it takes a little time to adjust. I think they'll be fine. And I do think they'll finish second in the regular season and play Ohio State in the championship game for that in the Big Ten. And I think maybe they've gotten themselves righted a little bit. They played really well against Oregon State last.
They did. I was impressed with that win. Maybe the light's starting to go off.
I think so. I think they had two scares. I mean, everybody has a scare somewhere, right? But they had two really big scares against Idaho, who's not very good, and then at home against a good Boise State team, another team that's in contention for that Group of 5 playoff spot. Boise State right now is in the top 25. They moved in this week, so not a bad football team.
Wow.
You can't.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
And then lose it and winning by a field goal at the end of regulation against Boise State at home. So
Boise State, yeah. I'll tell you, there's always a team nobody talks about, and they pop up there. I was really impressed with UNLV going back to that story. For best start since 1984.
Yeah, it's Barry Odom's done a really good job there. This team, I think, it was either winless or had one win just 3 or 4 years ago. And Barry Odom has slowly built this program back. And that's the sad part about this kid leaving and just leaving his teammates in a lurch.
Yeah.
Again, with realistic playoff aspirations, I'm not saying they go there and win a national championship, but that's a big deal just to get to the playoff. And
that's true. That's true. I think that, you look at his stats, he hadn't thrown over 160 yards in any game.
No.
And I looked at his draft grade, and he's the 32nd ranked quarterback in the 2020.
This is his only chance to make some money. And
I think that's what it is, Keith.
If they're not going to give me the $100,000 you promised me here, then I'm going to redshirt and take off, which you could call
24 years old and go to a big conference.
It doesn't look good though for the school. If you're going to promise kids money, you might better pay them. This won't be the last time this happens.
I'm surprised it hadn't happened in a big school.
That's when it'll hit the radar, and you'll see contracts getting signed for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not giving a kid a bunch of money. Dylan Gabriel gets $2 million to go to Oregon this year.
Yeah.
I mean, if this were and I think his eligibility's up, but let's just say he was, I was paying a kid $2 million to come to my school as a freshman. I'm not giving him the money unless he stays. You're going to stay at whatever, 2 years, 3 years before you go to the pro.
Divvied out, right?
You're going to transfer out of here after a year. You're going to play in any bowl game we play in. And
that's true. That's true. If you get the NIL, you got to play in the bowl game, man.
Or I'll take my money back. Yeah. I mean, there's got to be some regulation here. All the power is in the players' hands right now. All of it.
It's the Wild West. I predicted this would be like this the first few years.
Yeah.
Then you'll start to get a little bit of guardrails and some kind of regulation. So it's just not the crazy Wild West out there, man. You
got to have something because they're going to drive this thing into the ditch right now. And, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Remember, 10 miles of road equals 20 miles of ditch. So don't
Chad, we will get to that Georgia game in a minute. I'm not going to leave out Georgia and Alabama. What do you think about the AP poll as it sits? Is Texas really the number one team? Do you think Georgia should have dropped down after that Kentucky game?
Texas played really good football. They played without their number one quarterback for a game and a half, a game and 3 quarters, whatever it is. And Georgia may very well be the best team in the country. These polls don't mean a whole lot right now. You finish first in the conference and get a bye in the playoff. That's all you really care about. After the Georgia Clemson game, especially after Clemson, who, not playing the best competition, but not playing awful competition the last 3 weeks, has won very impressively. I thought Georgia's got to be even better than I thought. The way they killed Clemson and held them to 2 points that day. And then they throw a stinker in against Kentucky, but everybody's going to have one of those. And they
had one against Missouri a few years ago.
Yeah, they just they just couldn't get any rhythm going that day, and I think that's a good place to have it if you're going to have it. And maybe they were looking ahead a little bit. They had a bye week last week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, and they're playing at Tuscaloosa this week,
and they're going to play at Alabama, so they might have been looking a little ahead to that game, and maybe it was a wake up call. And I'm sure of this. Kirby Smart is probably happy that he's happy they won. He didn't want to lose.
Right.
But I'm happy. I bet he's happy they struggled because he probably got to ride them hard the last 2 weeks.
Do you think they're just bored because they've been so good so long?
I think it's possible, and I think they win this week. I think they go in there. They're favorite on the road. They got more to lose here than Alabama because they still got to go play Ole Miss. They got to play Texas. They got to play
Tennessee.
So that's a tough road, man, for Georgia.
Yeah, it's in Tuscaloosa, Keith. So what are your thoughts about the Boar and how I like the way they look? Of course, it was against Wisconsin.
I do too. I think they play. Listen, Luke Fickell and Wisconsin struggled a little bit in his first couple of years now there, but they're not an awful team. And Camp Randall's a tough place to go play, no matter what. And to manhandle that team the way they did, I think is very impressive. Jalen Milroe is a really good quarterback. He fits Caleb DeBoer's offense perfectly. Struggled a little bit against South Florida last week, but they pulled away at the end, or 2 weeks ago, I should say.
Yeah, they ended up scoring 42 points. I think they had the bye week too last week.
Yeah, if you remember, they struggled even worse against South Florida last year, and that really kind of turned their season around. Milroe got benched, and then he took off after that and got better and better and better and better.
Yeah,
he's gonna be.
Do you think he'll go for the draft this year?
I think it's quite possible. Yeah, and I think he'll. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy about the draft class, quite frankly. Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, these are probably going to be the two top guys to go, I would think.
Yeah.
A lot of people love Shooter Sanders. This doesn't strike me as just this overwhelming.
It's not a killer class, is it?
No, I don't think it is. And I don't think any of those guys are like locks to be number one pick or be a 10-year starter in the NFL. I think any of them are going to be a work in progress. It's a year that similar to this year. I mean, I wasn't crazy about this year's draft class either. I would wait. I'd wait to get a quarterback later.
That's a good point. I mean, Beck has not looked really spectacular, and he's still as a number one guy. That was a great throw though by Shooter Sanders in that Baylor game. But
I bet Colorado that night -2, and I had chalked this up as a loss because the play before this, he threw a Hail Mary, and the kid dropped it. It was right in his hands.
Oh,
he was at the 2-yard line. He would have fell right into the end zone. He dropped it, and I'm thinking, you don't get two chances. Well, with 3 seconds, he throws one more, and somehow the kid gets free in the end zone. He didn't even lost that ball. He just threw a rocket. And it was a great throw. But I'm not so sure how his game is going to translate on the next level. It's hard to tell how good he is, though, because that offensive line is really bad.
They are. They've been bad since last year.
Listen, he's playing with, I think, the guy who's the best player in college football is Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
He should. To me, he ought to be the leading contender for the Heisman, and he's not.
Could he be the number one pick? One mock draft has him as the number one pick.
I'll tell you what, it'll probably depend on the team that's there. But if I would draft him. If the Patriots have the number one pick, they'd be stupid not to take this kid.
Where do you play him? Corner or receiver?
I'm going to play him a cornerback, and I'll spot him on offense. I'll find a way to get him into the offense. He's not going to play like he plays now with 120 plays a game.
I don't know what Deion's thinking, man.
That's a little too much, right? Playing him.
Is this Deion's last year? I've been asking college people about this. Is he leaving after his sons leave?
It wouldn't shock me. I mean, especially since I know they're 3-1, but they're 3-0 last year, and I don't see this team winning 6 games this year either. I think they'll be 5-7 at best, and this is about the time the wheels fell off last year. They needed a miracle to beat a bad Baylor team last week, and that's what you're seeing here. And I think it's very possible that Deion's going to either chase himself out of town or get himself chased out.
Okay.
I think this thing's gotten away from him a little bit. Just too much. The marketing's there, but the product's not there. That's the problem.
Yeah. My dad would say, all hat, no cattle.
Yeah, right. And you can't just build a team, 85 or 90% through the transfer portal.
Yeah.
You got to go get some big recruits, and you got to go visit them. And he has yet to sit in a kid's living room and try to get him to come to Colorado. And that's just not the way you're going to get it done here. And plus, you're right. Sanders is gone. Both Sanders will be gone, I think, after this year, and Travis Hunter, and the cupboard's kind of bare after that. So I'm not sure what he's going to do. I wouldn't be shocked to see him go, and this team will be as bad as when he got there if he leaves.
That's what I'm thinking. At first I thought maybe he would take that Florida job because do you really think Florida's going to keep their coach?
No, Bill, I'm surprised he survived the loss 2 weeks ago against Texas A&M.
Me too, right?
He got a win last week, but I thought he was going to get fired. They called a press conference Monday. Everybody thought he was getting fired that day, and I don't remember what they announced, but it wasn't his firing. But they've got a tough schedule too. That SEC is so tough, and they just don't have the talent. They haven't recruited the way, Florida. People think, and it's funny. It's the same way with. In a way, Florida State's probably got the bluest blood. Everybody thinks Florida State, Miami, they're blue bloods of college football, but they're not Alabama. They're not Texas. They don't have decades and decades and decades worth of history. Yeah. Miami was really good from 82 to 2004. Yes. Florida was good for a 10-year stretch with Spurrier and a 10-year stretch with Urban Meyer, and they haven't been that good any other stretch. And Florida State had the Bobby Bowden years and a couple under Jimbo, and then that was it. So they aren't really the Oklahomas and the Alabama's of the world. They don't match up with those programs.
Nick Saban says their facilities are terrible.
Miami's are. They've done
that for Florida.
Yeah, Florida, I would say the same thing. They can't compete with these other. That's why they can't keep these kids in Florida anymore. As the SEC's gotten better, Mississippi's gotten better, and LSU's going to Florida and recruiting. Alabama and Georgia obviously are Alabama and Georgia, but they're losing kids all over the Southeast Conference and other conferences too, where normally they would keep them home, right? For 30 years anyway.
I just figured that it would be so easy in Lakeland, Florida, that to recruit kids that are just the local high schools got to be down in Gainesville, right?
It used to be, I mean, now and maybe part of it is, if you remember, what did Spurrier called Florida State when they had the rivalry bout? Was there no shoes you or?
He's always kneeling. So they used to dog out to the sea. You can't spell U and citrus without U and T. That's the consolation game when you don't make the SEC.
You would always say, Florida State was getting all these recruits because they were getting all these freebies, like,
Oh yeah,
that was a big deal. They were getting shoes and track suits and maybe a car if they were really good. But now it's like nothing compared to what the kids are getting today. So those are some big rivalries, though.
Hurricane coming to half of Florida. Is there any big Florida games this weekend?
Well, Miami's playing at home against Virginia Tech Friday.
Maybe it's going to dodge Miami though.
Friday night they might. I heard the Florida A&M, and I'm not sure where their campus is. I know that game is postponed.
Okay. It's supposed to hit Tampa. I was just in Tampa back in May. Look, so
I think it's coming up the Gulf, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the East Coast will be fine, and Miami will be fine.
Florida State such a low. Yeah. What happened to Florida State? Is Norvell going to survive?
Yeah, he'll survive. He'll survive. This team's got to reload. They made some bad choices in the transfer portal. Bringing in DJU was a bad choice at quarterback, and I mean it goes.
What a bust at 5-star was this guy?
Yeah, they should have known what they were getting here. They saw what he was at Clemson. They saw what he was at Oregon State. He was, he had his moments, but he never played good against top competition ever.
No.
So that's a bad choice there. They had a lot to replace on defense, and
they did.
He'll do a good job in the portal, I think, next year, and I think this team will be back.
Norvell survives.
And listen, I think so. And but it shows you how tough it is, because nobody's Georgia, nobody's Alabama, where you just keep reloading, and
right.
It doesn't matter how many guys you lose; you just plug another guy in. Most programs can't do that. You're gonna have a swoon for a little bit.
Yeah,
he had 2 really good years. Might have won a national championship for all we know last year if
Jordan Travis didn't get hurt.
Jordan Travis doesn't get hurt, and
yeah,
it's a shame. So
that's crazy. Yeah, it's something else, man. That's the biggest shocker. So is the ACC, is that Miami's to lose?
I think so. To me, the only test for them might be they've got Louisville on a schedule, which it will be a tough game.
Yeah,
Florida State doesn't look that tough. I think when they go to Syracuse on the road might be a little tougher than we think. The last game of the regular season.
Okay,
I'm going to try to get to that game. I was looking for tickets earlier, and they're kind of
nice. But
I'm going to try to get out to that game. Syracuse is only a couple hours from here. But it might be Clemson in the ACC championship game, a team that they have historically had some trouble with.
Wow.
I've seen this with the Hurricanes before, though. They gets off to a great start, and the hype starts coming up, and they get in the top 10, and then all of a sudden they lose to somebody like Virginia Tech on home.
They got them Saturday. Virginia Tech losing to Vanderbilt. So
the difference is all those other years they didn't have a guy as good as Cam Ward playing quarterback, because he's really, really good.
Yeah. And he may be the best player they've had at quarterback in over 25 years, maybe.
I would, maybe more. I'm trying. Because the guys who played quarterback during those really good early 2000s,
they wasn't that great, were they?
They weren't that good. I got to go back to, Testaverde in the
80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, Carlos says Georgia Tech. Carlos is such an out. I mean, they lost last week, Carlos.
Yeah, they beat a bad Florida State team, and everybody got excited. Go back to Cam Ward for a second. Cam Ward nobody wanted this kid out of high school. He's a zero star prospect out of high school.
He looked great against Florida, but Florida's not great. So,
listen, he played great in the second half last week too against South Florida after they struggled a little bit in the second half.
Pat Chad says Duke. Yeah, I mean, ACC is really falling off. You're talking about.
Manny Diaz, speaking of the Hurricanes, Manny Diaz is up there coaching Duke now, and
I forgot about Manny Diaz.
They should win this week. They got North Carolina rather, who gave up 70 to James Madison last week.
Yeah. He's talking about stepping down. I forgot that guy's name. He used to coach Texas.
Mac Brown.
Yeah.
He's getting a lot of pressure, man. He's had some really good recruiting classes. It's very similar to Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M.
Yes.
He had a couple of top 15 recruiting classes the last few years, but it doesn't translate on the field, and you've got to win games. You don't win, you can win all the recruiting wars you want, but if you don't win games, you lose your job.
Yeah.
I had a lot of talk about Jamie Chadwell, the coach at Liberty, and he was at Coastal Carolina before being the next North Carolina coach.
Okay. There you go.
There's a guy who can coach some offense, I'll tell you right now.
Man. Yeah, Keith Engel, I want to say, how many shows are you on now? My shows, I've got the College Football Huddle, which we did before I came on here on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. I've got the one-on-one interview show on Friday mornings. Who do you got coming up Friday?
This week we have Larry Schechter. He's actually an author. He wrote his latest book is The History of Fantasy Sports, which we'll have him on talk. But we've had some great guests recently. Reggie Williams was on recently. Ernie DiGregorio was on recently. Brett Saberhagen I've had on since I talked to you. Some really good players and other guys around the world of sports. And Gary McKillips, who's a podcaster and writer, and has been doing this for years and years. Actually, it's funny. Gary, who I've followed on Facebook for a long time, I found out he posted this is how I got him on the show. He posted a thing from 50 years ago almost, from WIZR radio in Johnstown, New York, near where I grew up. And he broadcast for the Glove City Colonials, which played in the Empire Football League. It was a semi-pro football league. Yeah. Really good league back in the 70s. And he broadcast their games for 10 years. I never knew this. I've been friends with him on Facebook for years, and I got him on the show, and we had a lot of great conversation last week about those times in the 70s and his career. This guy's interviewed and covered every major sporting event you can think of, and we had a lot of fun with him last week. So that's the one-on-one interview show, the MLB update on Fridays.
What time's that interview show come on in the mornings? On
9 a.m. 9 a.m. Eastern.
9 Eastern, 8 Central, folks.
Yep.
Now, I've listened to a couple of those. I know that college show was great. Man, you better than Kirk Herbstreit, those guys off game day, man.
I appreciate it. So it's the audience that gets me going. So and the kind of the flagship show is our Sunday Stream of Consciousness, where everything is like on the table. But I can come with no notes and nothing and just let the audience, drive the show.
That's at 9 or 8. Eastern.
That is at 8:30. 8:30 Eastern. Yep.
Okay, 7. Okay.
And we go 2 hours, 8:30 to 10:30 on Sunday morning.
Woo. And you no notes, you just go in there free.
I'll jot down a bunch of notes, right? And I'll throw a few topics out, and sometimes we don't even talk about those things because I just run off the comments from the viewers, and that's kind of their show. I tell them it's their show, and they do a great job of stirring my pot, if you will, because they get me going some days. But we have a lot of fun on that show.
Well, Saturdays are big games. There's big baseball. There's big college football. I guess you never really have a board.
There's always lots to talk about. And, it isn't just the games. We talk about all the stories. UNLV will be a big thing that we debate, back and forth this week. So
that is wild. I expected it. Didn't you expect that? I expected bigger issues like,
I didn't expect it from Nevada, Las Vegas. I didn't expect it there, but I expect it to be ugly at different times, right? As you said, it's going to be crazy for a few years, and hopefully then there's some guardrails, to use your term.
We're flying off the roller coaster.
Off the guardrails and back into the highway.
So you're picking. You think Georgia's going to beat Alabama? What's the score going to be?
I think it'll be let's say 28-24.
28-24 Georgia.
Yep.
Wow. I haven't picked that one yet. I'll pick it Friday. I'm leaning Alabama, but maybe you're right. I don't know. They're really talented now in Georgia.
Rick Sherlock, who I saw commented before, he's a big Georgia fan. He's begging me to pick Alabama because I've been on a bad run here the last 3 weeks.
Oh, and he picks – it goes the opposite way?
Well, he's picking his team, that's for sure.
Okay. You're the kiss of doom, kiss of death.
It isn't been that bad, but I righted the ship a little last week. So.
Yeah, like Mike and Mike, when Mike Greenberg picks you, they would say, no, don't do it.
Right.
Keith Engel, everybody. Thank you, buddy. Thanks again. And hopefully maybe I could bring you back the week of maybe Texas and Georgia, especially if Georgia wins, right? That'll be number 1 and number 2, Keith.
What week is that? Let me just check.
It's got to be in October we've got a big weekend coming up in October in college.
I can do that because I'll be away the next week. Or will I be away then? No, I won't be away.
You got that big cruise you go on every year.
Yeah, we got our October. That's not till the 25th though. We're gone the 25th until the 5th of November of this time.
Oh man, boy, you're a good husband leaving in college football season like that.
You can watch the games all over the ship.
Oh, you can.
Phone, they got places to watch all over the place. I get it on my phone. I get it everywhere. So it's all.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
We'll even do some of the shows from the ship. We like to do some shows from the ship too.
Yeah. And then Pickle says the Mets and the Yankees in the play. Who would have thought Mets would have made it? But
Mets are playing. Listen, Mets are second hottest team in baseball behind the Tigers of all teams. The last 45 games.
Yeah. Hey, that's what I said. I think it's the way it is in baseball. Who's hot at the right time?
Right now, Tigers, I would say Tigers and Padres might be the hottest two.
Yeah, they beat the Dodgers, didn't they, earlier?
Yeah, they're 2 games back. They still got a shot at the division yet.
Man, that'd be awesome.
Playing good baseball.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, have a good one. Hey, everybody, I'll be back tomorrow. I may have Ken Norris, but he hasn't got back to me. He's I'll check with me. I think he's going to end up coming on tomorrow. But if not, I got a lot of stuff to talk about tomorrow in the wild world of sports. Got a lot of big games coming up this weekend and whatnot. If you like the show, please share the show. You see how great guys like Keith and everybody is. So make sure and do so. And I will see you tomorrow. Otherwise, here at the same time here on the Real Sports Scope. Great crowd tonight. Good night, everybody.